Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Correo TV. This is Isabel Inclán, Editor-in-Chief of Correo Canadiense newspaper. This month, March, we were talking about many problematics around women because we celebrate and we commemorate the International Women's Day. And also during the month, we were talking about the realities of many women around the world. And today, our guest is Laura Plancarte. She is the director. She is a Mexican director living in UK, and now she is here from Mexico City. She is the director of the film NonWestern. This is a documentary that took the premiere on Vision the Rule 2020 Festival and selected Best Festival in the IDFA Amsterdam Film in 2020, and now is part of the documentary competition at the 2021 CineQuest Film Creativity Festival. Laura, thank you so much for being here.
Isabel, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here with you. And I'm happy I cannot see you, the rest of you, but I'm very happy that we're able to have this conversation.
Okay, and Laura Plancarte is the director also of films like Tierra Caliente and Brothers. And NonWestern is the story about the special couple in Montana. He is a native and she is a non-native, and how they met and how they are a modern couple in Montana and they are preparing their wedding, but that relationship is special, of course, and it showed the complexity of the relationship of how they were affected by history, race, gender, and religion. So, Laura, can you tell us about what led you to this story?
Yes. I met Thaddeus and Nancy because I was filming with a character for my previous film, Hermanos, in Montana. So that's how I got to Montana. And when I met Thaddeus and Nancy, I definitely said, I would love to make a film with them, not only because it's a unique relationship in the situation of having an interracial couple from a Northern Cheyenne man with a white woman, but because Nancy was adopted by the Lakota traditions when she was 13. So even though that she's white, she practices Native American traditions. And Thaddeus, who was born in Lame Deer Reservation at 15, realized that he needed to go out of the reservation because he was either going to end up killing somebody or he was going to be killed. And he was adopted by a white Christian family. So therefore, both are adopted by the opposite culture. So therefore, it's not a coincidence that obviously they attract each other because they are finding this kind of mixture that they had since before.
This is the trailer of the NonWestern documentary that is under competition in a US festival.
It's amazing how much a year can change things. We went from being friends to let's get married. It's about us coming together, and that means me committing to being Northern Cheyenne. So you're stuck with me.
The Cheyenne people believe that there is a balance between man and woman. Like that time of the month, I didn't know anything about that till I left the reservation. But I have to hold you to that standard of my mom and my grandmother of how strong they were.
Mother here, and I'm going to talk to you that way. This is a woman's role, this is the man's role. You might be Caucasian, but you've got a Native upbringing.
I am more than one thing, and that doesn't mean that I don't believe in the traditions or embrace them.
I was gonna end up in prison or be dead. And that was the reservation life, you know.
Why not enjoy your life as a man and a wife and appreciate and respect each other's culture?
The traditions are being lost. The traditions are dying. If it's gonna be done the Cheyenne way, I'd rather have it the Cheyenne way and keep it that way. She calls herself a modern woman, where it came down to laundry, you know? And like I tell her, in this house, your doctorate don't mean nothing. I don't sleep at night. Because all the images of the things that I've done come and haunt me. Things that I can't even describe to you. Don't get me wrong, I love my country, but I don't know if I'll forgive the government.
I don't want to lose who I am, because I like who I am.
The Cheyennes believe when you step over somebody, you take their spirit with you.
Yeah, but I didn't grow up with it all, so I can't remember it all the time.
No, it's not
But
even
you-
about the traditions. It's not even about me. I just asked, do you like being stepped over?
And Laura, tell us a little bit about the main characters. You were mentioning the struggles that they face in this community. When we put together one couple from Native community, this is specifically from Cheyenne community in Montana, and she is a non-native. And also they face the problem that if they want to be to have a traditional ceremony, this is very, very difficult moment for her, because she has a PhD degree and she didn't want to lose that. Can you explain a little bit more?
Yes, I think it was very challenging. So there is, as you have seen in the trailer, and hopefully you will be able to witness properly in the film, that please watch in CineQuest, which is playing right now from the 20th to the 30th of March. There's a moment where they're going to get married by the Northern Cheyenne traditions. So they go to a meeting, Thaddeus and Nancy, to speak with Thaddeus' mother and with the priest, the Northern Cheyenne priest, and Thaddeus' mother is a ceremonial woman in the Northern Cheyenne tradition, of what would mean for Nancy, who's non-native, what would she need to do by marrying Thaddeus. And I think in the meeting, what is very interesting for me, because a lot of people ask me, well, the role of women in the Northern Cheyenne traditions maybe is asking women, to take more like a subordinate role. But for me, what was very interesting is actually the ceremonial man, who's Vernon, suggests, why not embrace both cultures? And you guys, make your own family, you make your own kind of rules in a way. And it's when you realize that a lot of people from the native communities have, evolved into modern times, and that doesn't mean that you lose your traditions. Nevertheless, Thaddeus doesn't agree with that. Thaddeus doesn't agree with the Northern Cheyenne priest, and he says, no, if we're going to marry in the traditions, in the Northern Cheyenne traditions, he asks of Nancy to basically leave all of her way of living, all of her studies in the way of putting them aside, that when they are in their home, she takes on a role of a woman that maybe is from the 18th century, the 19th century kind of style. And that was brutal. So for me, there's a lot of questions regarding why is he asking her that, and why is she, putting herself in that position, because she, as you said, Isabel, she's a woman that has studied a PhD, that she's a professor in university, she has a wonderful career, and
actually, she is proud that she got a job
exactly.
as an early child's manager place, right?
Yes, exactly. So she has a wonderful career, and you would ask, why would she consider this, and why would Thaddeus ask of her this? And for me, this is a very personal opinion, and I think for me, I don't like to do these kind of films where it's basically didactic or you want to teach the audience into something. I think for me, what's important is to ask questions and to leave for each person to answer them. In my own perspective, what Thaddeus is asking of Nancy doesn't have to do with the Native American traditions of the Northern Cheyennes. I think he is asking that of Nancy because I think he wants to feel in control, because he's a man that has suffered a lot, and through history, he has been oppressed in many, many ways. And unfortunately, I think what happens is that when you experience that, sometimes you have these childhood wounds, and in a way you repeat that pattern. And in my perspective, the situation between them is much more about repeating their own childhood trauma, patterns, than actually about traditions. I think Nancy is considering accepting the situation because she comes from a lot of struggle. Her mom was a victim of domestic violence, not only by her father, but by other partners that the mother had afterwards, until they had to run away and they were homeless when she was 13, without anything, by seeing how men had abused her mom. And she found the comfort through the Lakota traditions that in a way became this father figure. So I think in a way, both of them are kind of stuck in their own wounds, in their own past. And I think in my perspective, it doesn't have to do with if you are Native or not Native. I think the Native American traditions exist, like many other traditions exist, but I think everybody wants to also see that time passes and that you cannot stay in the 1800s and you are in the 21st century. So for me, that was what's interesting. If you see that meeting, you realize that the priest is telling them, nobody has to be a slave of anybody. And nevertheless, the priest says this, Thaddeus doesn't agree. And Thaddeus' mom in that situation supports her son in this patriarchal attitude. And I think later in the film, what's very interesting is when there's a confrontation between the mother and Thaddeus, you realize that the mother has been also a victim of this patriarchy. And in a way, she was trying also to stop the wedding exactly because she didn't want the patriarchal situation to repeat, because she is also a victim of this. So I think for me, what's interesting about this is to show that things are much more complex than what they seem at first glance. At first glance, it's easy to judge people, but we are not in their shoes and we are not in their lives. And I think that's what's interesting about humanity, is why we choose the things we do, why our behavior. We are all full of contradictions. It's not Thaddeus and Nancy. Thaddeus and Nancy had the courage to show it to us in a film. But we are all like that. And for me, that's how I feel close to them.
And Laura, after you spent time in that community, Cheyenne community in Montana, United States, of course, what do you think about that community? What did you learn from this community?
I think I learned many things. I learned that, sometimes we are forgetting what's the big picture in life. We are very worried about this instant situation that we live. Oh, this message didn't go, the email, the situation. And we get caught up in things like, was able to do this paper today or not, or the grade that I got? And I think we lose what life is about. We lose, like, for example, you would ask yourself, okay, I could be worried, putting in my example, if my film is going to do good or not good in the festival circuit, for example. And at the end, we're living in a world right now in a pandemic where we see there's global warming. Well, maybe in 20 years, we don't have enough water or things like that. That is kind of like the big picture situation, but we get caught up in our own personal struggles that could be even, oh, I had a problem with my kite today, and that destroys our life. And I think in Native communities, there's a value of this more kind of connection with what is our, the raw elements of a more closer life to nature, to feeling what, emotionally what we are feeling at the moment, and not be, always either in the past or in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me was a great learning experience. But also for me, it was challenging because I'm Mexican, and I have been close into what is Mexican social problems and struggles. And I have seen poverty in Mexico in a very brutal way, as the same as how violence is affecting the country. But I didn't know how many of the reservations of the United States worked. And for me, it was an eye-opener. And it was actually something that hurt me, in a situation of seeing how people have been placed in these, like kind of segregated places. And even though that the land and the landscapes is beautiful, you see that a lot of people are struggling in a really, really bad way.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a sense also that what you realize is, that they're still, they are suffering the effect of the colonization. They are suffering the effect of the oppression. And I think the biggest oppression that you can have is when somebody tries to take your identity from you. And that for me was very sad, because when I visit Glendeer, what you realize is that many people are kind of living in the limbo, because they are trying to, get a hold in a culture that they don't even remember exactly how it was 200 or 300 years ago. And they feel American, but at the same time, they don't feel American. So it's kind of, there's an identity situation, which I think makes you suffer and makes you weaker in a way. And
and this is important because you mentioned Mexico, but also we can mention the indigenous community in all Latin America and all around the world. And we are in Canada. So in Canada, we have our First Nations communities, and also they are struggling many things. So your documentary NonWestern in this point is like a universal topic to see, right?
Exactly. For me, a lot of people say, well, it's maybe something unknown to you, but as you say, Isabel, is actually something very known, because all the American continent has been the product of the colonization oppressing the indigenous people. So everybody that comes from this continent, we know it and we have seen it. And we are, we see the struggle of what happens when people are oppressed that way. So it wasn't unknown, but maybe it was something that I was, naive in the situation that sometimes, because the United States is the most powerful country in the world, still is, you would imagine that the most powerful country in the world would have, given to its people better chances. That people maybe in Latin America, we know that we are not the most powerful country, that we have been struggling, so you would imagine more. But what it is quite shocking is that exactly, you see this country that is incredibly powerful, but then you ask, is it really powerful just for military, for controlling, for economical, from exteriors? But their own people are suffering, not only the indigenous. By being in Montana, I could see it with Ross, with Thaddeus' friend, the rancher, how he's struggling, the middle class is struggling. So that's why you see an America that is very struggling. And it makes, for me, it's quite a contradiction of being the most powerful country in the world. And it made me ask many questions, and also I learned a lot, and I was able to see another side of America that I hadn't seen, because obviously, I'm Mexican, and also then you get caught up in the situation of Mexico and the US, our own relationship that has a lot of frictions and tensions and all that kind of thing.
Okay, Laura, and thank you so much for being here, and tell us how can we watch the non-Western documentary.
Well, at the moment, we're working with 2 sales agents in order to sell the film. So hopefully it will be in broadcast or in a platform soon for the Canadian and from all the people around the world to watch it. But right now we are still in the festival circuit, where I really, really invite you to watch it right now. It's going to be at CineQuest 2021. So if you Google CineQuest or CineJoy, you would be able to watch the film, and it's going to be there from the 20th of March to the 30th of March.
Okay, Laura Plancarte, and good luck in this documentary competition.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate Isabel, and I really appreciate everybody that is hearing us and watching us.
Okay, thank you so much for being here with Correo TV, and we hope we have you in another opportunity.